Feeling really good today. So, this morning, we're going to be talking a little bit about the impact of lockdown on our skin. Um, I, through doing like online consultations throughout lockdown, have heard kind of the same concerns or complaints or issues time and again. And they're quite often relating to similar things. And I think it's just all of us have fallen into quite, with limited activities or experiences that we can have at the moment, and missing out on things that maybe we would depend on for stress relief, for a boost in vitamin D, for improved sleep, even for like a little bit more joy in our lives, like seeing friends or going on holidays or seeing family. It all has all of these little things have an impact. I've wanted to do this workshop at other points during lockdown, but I've thought like, I'll wait till the end. And I believe that we are probably at the end now. I'm hoping that this is the last full month. So I thought, oh well, here's the chance. So I did do a little tutorial on it, which is up on Skin Society as well. But the kind of key things that I think have been playing a massive role are number one, increased screen time. So this month on Skin Society, we've been talking about the impact of screen time, blue light damage on skin. It has a similar effect to UV damage from the sun, but not as intense. So like, for example, not cancer inducing, but in the way that it is aging, which is just so awful when I see my screen time pop up at like 6 hours, 7 hours a day, which is really scary. Um, Aging, if you are suffering with any pigmentation or you've had breakouts and you have the post-inflammatory acne pigmentation, blue light from screens can make it stick around for longer. And also, I think it actually puts a lot of strain on our eyes as well, the blue light. So you may have seen people having like blue light blocking glasses, good for stopping like stimulation of the brain, but also good at just protecting our eyes, as it can be. I don't know if anyone has been experiencing like twitchy eyes or anything like that from increased screen time, but we've seen that quite commonly in the consultations that we've been doing. So a couple of ways to combat this is being really hot on SPF, because it does offer protection against blue light damage from screens. If you are like me and you know that you're probably not going to put SPF on while you are sat in the house, there are a couple of products, and there's more and more coming onto the market that include ingredients that protect against blue light damage. So the ones that we have are Skin and Tonic calm down oil, which has blueberry seed in. It does smell like blueberries. I don't find it too sweet. I actually really like it, but it is, obviously blueberries are a sweeter smell. That is great. The Elixir Explorer blend is amazing for light damage to skin. So whether that's sun damage or protecting from blue light damage, as it has tomato seed extract in, which is very brightening and also protective against blue light, or I think it's called HEP light as well. The third one is Nini Organics Crimson Beauty. I use this day and night. It's such a gorgeous hyaluronic acid, and it has Arabian cotton in, which protects against blue light damage, as well as loads of other wonderful ingredients that feed the skin's microbiome. It's a very protective product. It's really, really, really lovely. I love it, but it's really expensive, but it's really nice. They're actually all discounted at the moment on Skin Society for any Skin Society members. Another thing that I've been seeing really commonly, and this kind of comes up with almost any skin complaint, whether it's acne, eczema, psoriasis, if you have perioral dermatitis, if you have a predisposition to any of these, any kind of skin, whether you're prone to like you're a bit of a rashy person. It can often come out when we are suffering from low vitamin D. Vitamin D is really important for our immune system, and our skin as an organ is actually part of the immune system, as it protects us from pathogens on the outside world. And also we use it for detoxification if you think about the way that we sweat. So vitamin D is super important for skin. I hear lots of people with acne or psoriasis or anything like that, eczema, saying that the condition gets much better when they're in the sun. And when I hear this, I question if it's the sun or if it's actually that they've had a big boost of vitamin D. So internally they're feeling stronger. I don't tend to say everyone should be supplementing all the time. I don't agree with that at all. But I do think it has been more challenging for us to be outside and to be getting our vitamin D levels up. We haven't had too many bright days. So if you are noticing changes in your skin, perhaps you're struggling to get it to where you want it to be. If energy's been a little bit lower, sleep has been a little bit worse. I think it's hard to judge immunity because we're not really coming into contact with too many people to catch anything. But if you felt a little bit run down, maybe like cold sores are appearing more often, if that's something that you're prone to, thinking about vitamin D is a really good thing to do. Your doctor will do a test for you, or Thriver do vitamin D tests if you are interested in checking your levels. Last year, I got a test from a company that has now, it doesn't exist anymore. And I didn't feel tired or anything. I thought I was fine. And my vitamin D was 50% lower than the lowest acceptable level. So it is quite interesting. But then the sun came out and I didn't really think too much about it. The final thing that I'm going to talk about today is stress. So I think that in terms of stress, normal, and I've spoken about this in other workshops and other tutorials, the normal stresses that we associate with living busy lives have been removed, but the stress is still there. So fine, we're not rushing around from one place to another and, you know, being late for a social event or being late for work or overbooking our diaries. It's not that kind of stress, but there is a level of stress where we, for the past year, you know, have been in a really odd situation. Our typical stress relievers have been really taken away from us. The places in which we normally so easily find joy have kind of disappeared a little bit. And I think all of this can weigh on the mind. And we talked about it last month. Stress, high levels of cortisol increases our sebum production. So if you are prone to breakouts, acne, having higher levels of stress will make skin produce more oil, which is just great. It can also be more inflammatory, as cortisol is quite an inflammatory, cortisol, our stress hormone, is quite inflammatory for the skin, and for anything else in our body as well. But I think just having those is just a change in mentality. And I think it's really important to, even though those same stressors aren't there, just to really ensure that you are doing things that you enjoy as much as possible. I know it's like so boring and so mundane at this point, but I think it all has a really big impact on the skin. I think it's great that you're here with me this morning. We're going to spend the rest of the time doing a really lovely, deep, wonderful massage. We're going to be focusing on working into the muscles, relieving any stress that we might be carrying, relieving it from the brow, doing a little bit of acupressure, reflexology, deep breathing, but just to incorporate these things into day-to-day lives and just keep checking in with how you feel. The other thing that I was going to say about stress, and we talked about it last month, is it leading on to slightly more negative habits, whether this is picking or negative self-talk or just having low mood or anything like that. So just being aware of it, accepting it, letting it sit with you for a while, and then trying to make a little bit of a change around it so that we don't spend the next, 6 weeks to 2 months kind of still feeling tense, feeling stressed, allowing ourselves to have broken sleep or allowing ourselves to sit with that level of anxiety, trying to make changes, little alteration. I know it's not as easy as that, but just trying to acknowledge it and think about what you can do to try and alleviate some of these things before the world starts to open up a little bit. Okay, that's the end of my talk. We're going to spend the rest of the time doing a really wonderful massage. Does anyone have any areas that they would like to focus on today? Is that the jaw? Yeah. Okay, great. We'll do loads of lovely work into the jaw. If you'd just like to T-zone congestion, well, that's very interesting. It's not something that I would necessarily, if you'd like to grab your oil and apply it to the face and neck, I'm using the Calm Down oil, the blueberry one from Skin and Tonic. It's nice, I do like it. T-zone congestion, we'll do a little bit of massage and lymphatic drainage, but for T-zone congestion, I would always, my like number one go-to would be treating this via products, the products that you're using. So as we're applying our oil, I'll just run through a few little things that I would use. So making sure that you have a really decent cleanser. If you are using an oil or balm, making sure that you're using a clean cloth every single time. Using something like the Nini Organics detox foam with salicylic acid or any other product with a salicylic acid in twice a week is the best thing for congestion and blackheads. The Lena Wild mask has salicylic acid in, which is a really lovely option as well. I do find the Nini Organics detox foam really easy to use though, and because you don't need like to mix it like a mask, you just use it with water. What else? The Mad Hippie AHA serum is a really nice one as well for congestion, and making sure that the hydrating products that you're using aren't too rich for the skin. We are going to be going through, hopefully, a little change of season now. So what you need in winter may not be what you need in summer. I know that we're still in winter. It definitely feels like winter, but hopefully it'll end at some point. Okay, great. So we're just going to start by doing some little circles over the third eye. I'm using my third finger. You can use whatever finger feels comfortable, popping it over the third eye, closing down the eyes and doing some teeny tiny circles. And we're just going to stay here for a moment, taking some deep inhalations and exhalations. Breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 4. Inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 4. Continuing with that breath, thinking about if you can make your circles any smaller, focusing on the sensation of touch on the skin. How does this point feel to you today? Is there any tenderness or tightness? Any heat? Or does it just feel lovely and soothing? Just thinking about if you can slow down your little circle anymore. Wonderful. Blinking open the eyes, we're just going to do some nice strokes up the nose and over the brow. Great. And then just coming down, we're going to start on the neck, as we always do. So doing some circles behind the ears, I'm using these 2 central fingers, and we're just going to start here. Feel free to experiment with pressure here. Really nice. And then just making these circles a bit bigger. Ovals, really. So you're going all the way down the neck. You can take this behind the neck a little bit as well and do a little bit. I'm using my fingertips like this, either side of the spine, and doing some little circles. Just on those big muscles that sit either side of the spine, going down into our trapezius muscles. Really nice. And then just coming back to the front of the neck, using flats of hands or backs of hands if that's more comfortable for your wrists. We're just going to work up the neck. It doesn't really matter what position, everyone's wrists will feel different, just so long as you're trying to use as much surface area of your hands as possible. And just working up, coming under the chin, and moving on to the other side. For T-zone congestion, sorry, I'm just saying the note again. For T-zone congestion, gua sha is actually, I mean, facial massage is good, but gua sha is actually much more effective, I find. And there is a gua sha workshop on the 27th of March. Just coming back under the chin, and we'll just do some little stretches out. The front of the neck is soft and compressed when we're looking down at the screen, so nice to give that a nice little bit of massage. Using as much surface area of your hands as you can to make it feel really lovely and generous. Really nice. And then we're just going to use, still working underneath the jaw, heels of the hands and kind of fingertips just to work outwards. If you find yourself going up a little bit onto the face, that's not a problem. Also, don't worry about if you're touching your ears, you won't hurt them. There's no need to avoid anything. Wonderful. Creating a little heart with our fingers, we're going to pop the thumbs underneath the chin and just give this muscle here with the first fingers, our chin muscle, I think it's called the mentalis, a little bit of massage. So today we're going to be working into all of the big muscles on the face. We have more than 40 muscles on our face. All of them work together synergistically. No muscles work no muscles work independently on their own. So if we've been tensing the jaw, if our eyes, our brow has been tense, all of the surrounding muscles will have also been carrying tension, will also be carrying tension as well. And with all of these moves today, I want you to work a little bit deeper, meaning that you keep the pace nice and slow. We're not going to be rushing through anything. Wonderful. Keeping this pinching motion going, we're just going to work under the jaw a little bit. So I'm just kind of pinching and pulling the skin up from just underneath the jaw. Using thumbs just to work it up. So here we're working on a muscle called the platysma. The platysma runs from about here all the way down onto our chest. And just going up onto the other side, using thumbs just to push up from underneath the jaws just onto the face. You may go over those big masseter muscles, the jaw muscles a little bit. You may not. Wonderful. Just coming back to the chin for a second. We're gonna take these two fingers, pinch the jaw, and start to push out along the jawline. If you are working with any breakouts, cuts, abrasions, bruises, be sure to work around them. Nothing about this should be painful. Wonderful. The next time we get to the outside of the face, we're going to take these two fingers and start to do, or whatever fingers feel comfortable, and start to do some very big circles over these jaw muscles. If you're not sure where the jaw muscles are, don't worry. Pop your fingers here, clench your teeth together, and you'll feel them pop out. Releasing the jaw, keeping some space between the top and bottom jaw. We're just going to start by doing some big, slow, generous circles over these muscles, keeping your whole face relaxed, space between the top and bottom jaw, ensuring that your tongue is soft in the mouth. Maybe swallowing a couple of times to make sure that your throat is nice and relaxed. And use this as an opportunity just to see how both sides are feeling. They may feel different to each other. One side may be carrying a little bit more tension. You may feel some little tender points or knots. And you can start to increase the pressure slightly. You increase the pressure by pushing in towards the face a little bit more, not speeding up, keeping it nice and slow. Wonderful. Next, we're going to go to using our fingers like this. So we're doing like a little kind of walking with our, just like this. Starting from the top, we're going to walk down over the whole muscle. So it's like, here I'm doing it with two fingers. I've just added in my fourth finger. Making sure you're keeping that space between the top and bottom jaw. And what I want you to think about here is, imagine there's some Play-Doh on the table and you're trying to like stretch it out. That's exactly what we're trying to do with the muscle fibers here. If we've been tensing or clenching or grinding, the muscles become hard, like more rock-like, and we want them to be soft and malleable, and for all of the little muscular fibers to have a little stretch, just like we'd stretch our bodies. We can't really do that so much on the face, so we're doing it manually. And you can move around a little bit. Remember that muscle is that big and that big, so it's quite a lot of surface area. A big muscle that does a lot of work. Really nice. Next, we're going to take our knuckles and press and hold, starting from the top, working down to the bottom. Remember that you're in control of the pressure, so if this feels too strong, just use a little bit less pressure. If you can go a little bit deeper, go a little bit deeper. And we're going to do these tiny little acupressure points from the top to the bottom of the muscle. So moving at your own pace. One side may feel more tender than the other. If you find a spot and it's quite sore, but you want to keep working on it, you can release, come back to it, release, come back to it. You can do some little circles as a distraction, or little vibrations, and just moving on to the next little spot when you feel ready. Making sure that you're still keeping everything as relaxed as possible, space between the top and bottom jaw. You don't want to be clenching a muscle, contracting a muscle that you're trying to physically release. And once you've had enough of that, you can come back to doing those soothing circles again. Give your jaw a little wiggle out as well. Wonderful. Okay, next, using fingertips coming to the corner of the mouth, we're going to work in a straight line straight out towards the ear. And we're just going to repeat that a few times. So just with fingertips, straight line from the corner of the mouth out towards the ear. And you should feel like you're kind of pulling your face into a smile. As here we're working on a muscle called the risorius. The risorius contracts, shortens to make us smile. Some people can really feel this, some people can't. It doesn't matter. The muscle's always in the same place. Corner of the mouth out towards the ear. And taking it nice and slowly, you can apply a little bit of pressure here, and the pressure is working in towards the face. So you push in towards the face, as well as moving outwards. I love working all around these buccal muscles. It's so good for if you have been experiencing any jaw tension. Wonderful. Next, moving on to my favorite one. Taking the thumb and third finger, we're going to pinch the muscle next to the mouth, work all the way across and all the way back. So I can demonstrate. Or if you know what you're doing, you go for it. Really nice. So just to, because it is hard to show on screen, so just to clarify, I'm pinching a muscle next to the mouth, not the cheek muscle, next to the mouth. I'm working across. You can pay a little bit, you guys continue, I can't talk and I can't talk and do it at the same time. You can pay a little bit of extra attention to this bit, the sides, when you're here, working on these little lines, but also working on these muscles next to the mouth. Here you're working on the orbicularis ori that runs around the mouth. It's a circular muscle, and the buccal muscles that sit just here on the sides of our lips. All of them are involved in anything that we do with our mouth, talking, eating, expressing. Really wonderful to work into this muscle group that's so often ignored. And really acknowledge what you're feeling here. Do you feel any tension, any tightness? If you feel called to work on a little area for longer, then definitely do work intuitively through this. With any of these moves, if you feel comfortable closing down the eyes to give yourself a little bit of reflection, a moment to reflect on how you're feeling, please do. Really nice. Okay. Just taking the full palms of the hands, we're going to just do some very big kind of sweeps upwards. Don't worry too much about where you're going, what you're doing. We're just working upwards, using the full hand from fingertips to heel of the hand. Really nice. And we're going to move into a little sinus routine. Also good for sculpting, also beneficial for any congestion around the nose. Really nice. Okay, coming to start on one side, it doesn't matter which side, taking the knuckle, feeling where your cheek isn't, feeling where it is, feeling where your cheek isn't. We're going to work up underneath here. So into the zygomatic arch underneath the cheekbone, using the knuckle of the opposite hand. We're just going to run it underneath. I think it's easier to use, I mean, you guys can use what you want, but opposite hand to opposite side, because you have a bit more power when you're pushing rather than pulling. Nice, and we'll just repeat this a couple of times. So if you have been suffering with any jaw tension, you will certainly have tension underneath the zygomatic arch as well. If you clench your jaw and feel under here, it all hardens up as well when it's all the muscles contract together. So wonderful to be able to work under here. Here we're also supporting the sinuses, promoting a little bit of clearance here, and working on lymphatic drainage away from the center of the face. Beneficial for any T-zone congestion. Wonderful. We can also do a couple of little presses and holds here. Press and hold for a couple of breaths and release. Press and hold and release. Remember, you're in control of the pressure. If you're finding it too much, this can be a tender area to work on. We'll just repeat this one more time. Press and release. Press and release. Press and release. Wonderful. Just taking some diagonally upward strokes over the zygomaticus that runs from the middle of the nasolabial line, diagonally across the cheek up towards the temples. I'm just using my central two fingers. You can use whatever feels comfortable for your hands, your wrists, just so long as you're working on that diagonal line. If you want to apply a little bit of pressure when you go over the temples, definitely do. It can feel really lovely. Really nice, really good. And just moving on to the second side, feeling where your cheek is, feeling where your cheek isn't. We're going to be working up underneath here, using the knuckle of the opposite hand, just sliding it underneath the zygomatic arch. Notice if one side feels any different to the other. Just checking in and making sure that you're still keeping everything as relaxed as possible, that no tension has crept in around the jaw, around the shoulders. You know, it can be tricky sometimes when you're concentrating on something new, but you can give yourself a little shake off just to make sure everything's staying nice and relaxed. Wonderful. And we can come to do a couple of press and holds here. Press and hold and release. Press and hold and release. Press and hold and release. Wonderful. And just repeating once more. Press and hold and release. Press and hold and release. Press and hold. Really nice. And taking it into those soothing strokes, running across the zygomaticus that runs from the middle of the nasolabial line up over the temples. applying a little bit of pressure over the temples sit here, if that feels good to you. Really nice. I'm just going to do a little bit more massage into these temples. So you can find your temples by feeling your forehead. It's like hard, hard, hard. And when it goes soft, that's where your temples are. The temporalis muscles sit like this on the side of the head. If you've had a lot of eye tension, squinting, or you've been doing some frownies, been suffering with any tension headaches, this is a wonderful, wonderful place to work on. Experiment with pressure and just see what feels good for you. Some days you might need a much lighter pressure, other days it may feel good to go a little bit deeper. It depends on the day. Really nice. Okay. We're going to create some little obstacles now. Popping them either side of the nose, just underneath the eyes. We're going to pull out towards the side of the face. Now, here, it's not necessary to use a hard pressure. You're working over thinner skin that's sat on top of bone. So keep it nice and light. And we'll stay here for a couple of breaths. So this is a nice one for decongesting the sinuses. Also helps with lymphatic drainage away from the nose. And in time will help with blackheads and congestion. Also great for any puffiness, dark circles underneath the eyes. Great. We're just going to do a couple of little sinus points while we're here. So the first one is just next to the nose. We're going to do both at the same time. Make a funny face and just press up. And we'll just hold this for a few breaths. Wonderful. The next one is directly underneath the pupil and up underneath the cheekbone. So directly under the pupil, up underneath the cheekbone. So you're pushing up underneath the cheekbone rather than in. Great. The next one is here where the nose meets the eyebrows, and we're going to be pushing up. And we'll just hold this for a couple of breaths. Nice. And we're just going to take that to a nice big stroke over the brows, following around lightly under the eyes and coming up hard over the brows, taking us into a little eye sequence. If you need a little bit more oil to move freely underneath the eyes, feel free to apply it. Really nice. So hard pressure over the brows, light under the eyes. Each time you come round, if you want to push up into that sinus point, that can feel quite nice. And keeping it light under the eyes. Really nice. So if you have been suffering with any puffiness around the eyes or tiredness, heaviness, this is a really wonderful little routine. Next time you come up, instead of pushing over the eyebrows where you can feel those hard muscles, run your fingers just underneath those corrugator muscles. So instead of going over them, you're running underneath, so they kind of pop up a little bit, and continue that circle around. Really nice. And here we're working on the orbicularis oculi muscles, these round muscles that that are in a circle around the eyes. They play a big role in us focusing on things, of course, expressing ourselves. Really nice. And next time we get to the bottom, we're just going to do some little semicircles back and forth. Following the bottom part of the orbital muscle, working over the orbital bone in little semicircles. You can just follow the path that your fingers kind of naturally find, depending on your anatomy. And just keeping it super, super light. There's no need to use any heavy pressure here. And we'll stay here for a few breaths. Can you make your semicircles move any slower? Could the pressure be any lighter? Just staying here for 2 more breaths. Inhaling and exhaling. Wonderful. Next time we come out to the sides of the eyes, we're going to go in that diagonal line again, just pushing up over the temples. So a diagonal line kind of running here, like along the cheekbone, from underneath the pupil to up over the temple. And we'll just repeat that a couple of times. If you want to take it all the way from fingertips to heel of the hand, you definitely can. That can feel quite nice. Applying a little bit of pressure over those temples again with the heels of the hands. You can even stay there to do a little bit of massage with the heels of the hands if you like. And using as much surface area as possible makes it feel really comforting and generous. Really nice. So just coming to do a little bit more work over these eyebrow muscles, the corrugators, popping our fingertips in the center of the forehead. We're going to stretch outwards over the brows, over the eyebrows, and just repeat a couple of times. So you're not really applying too much pressure in towards the head. You're pulling apart, like you're stretching those muscles apart from each other. That is exactly what we're trying to do. The corrugator muscles, these eyebrow muscles, frown, push in to create these little frownies, and we're trying to release them away from each other. Again, take it nice and slow. Let's see how it feels for you. You may be carrying a lot of tension here. It may be tender. It may be completely fine. Really nice. Doing the same thing, we're just going to pop our fingers in the center of our forehead and we're going to pull in opposing directions. Working on one side first. And then we'll move on to the other side. When we do that, we have to switch our hands. Otherwise it can feel a bit awkward. So here again, we're stretching out the muscles, stretching out those muscular fibers of the frontalis muscles that sit over the forehead. They run into the hairline as well. When they contract, shorten, they lift the brows and create those little lines, the horizontal lines that run across foreheads. And the pressure that you're using again is away, the energy is moving away from each other rather than pushing into the face. Really nice. And to work on the other side, we switch our top hand. Really good. Using as much surface area of the fingertips as possible, of the fingers as possible. Not working with just fingertips. Makes it feel much nicer. Really nice. And we'll just repeat this on each side one more time. You can also bring this down next to the eye a little bit and give that a nice little stretch out as well, because this bit can cause up too. Really nice. And just going on to the last side for the final time. And feel free to come down next to the eye if that feels good for you. Really nice. Taking flaps of hands, just coming back over the nose, over that third eye. Taking our third finger, we're just going to come back to this little point over the third eye. We're going to stay here for a bit. Then we're going to move just about a centimetre up to the centre of the forehead and do the same thing. And then we're going to move down to this point here, just underneath in that kind of dent in the chin, in the centre of the face. So that's where we're going. So closing down the eyes, tiny little circles over the third eye. And starting to focus on that breath. Inhaling for 4. And exhaling for 4. Inhaling. And exhaling. Making sure that your shoulders are soft. There's space between the top and bottom jaw. That your tongue is soft in the mouth. Swallowing a couple of times. And if you feel your mind start to wander, you can come back to the sensation of touch, the feeling of your finger on your skin over the third eye. Does it feel any different to the start of class? Wonderful. And just moving up to that second point, about a centimetre up, and tuning back into that breath. Inhaling for 4, and exhaling for 4. Inhaling and exhaling. Is your breath able to go deep into your belly? Is it getting stuck in the chest? Seeing if you can breathe a little deeper on the inhalations and let it out on the exhalations. Just coming back to your little circle. Could you be moving any slower? Just noticing the sensation of touch on this little reflex point. Do you notice any heat or coolness? Is the point releasing and softening? Is there any tenderness? Wonderful. And keeping the eyes closed, we're just going to move down to that third point, just in the dent of our chin. Relaxing the mouth, keeping some space between the top and bottom lips, keeping them loose, slightly open. Noticing the bottom half of your face. Is it still soft? Are your shoulders dropped? Is your belly soft? Staying here for 2 more breaths. Inhaling 4. And exhaling. Final one. Inhaling. And exhaling. Wonderful. Blinking open the eyes. Using flats of the hands to just take some nice strokes down the side of the neck. Wonderful. Placing hands over heart center, applying a little bit of downwards pressure. We're just going to take a nice front neck stretch. Coming back to the front, giving your wrists a little unwind, a little shake, and you're all done. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I hope you're feeling good. I hope you're feeling nice and relaxed. Does anyone have any questions for me before we go? I always feel super sleepy after these. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. The next workshop will be on the 27th of March, which will be all about lifting, toning, gua sha. It'll be a lot more invigorating. So thank you for joining me for this calming practice. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and hopefully see you at the studio next month. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.